This is Rhonda Brooks with Farm Journal Media, and I'm here today with Bob Utterback, Farm Journal economist. And Bob, we're at a corn college event just outside Rochelle, Illinois, and I know the title of your presentation is "How Far Do the Corn Prices Have to Go Before Demand is Rationed?" Tell us a little bit about what are some of the things you're wanting to communicate.
Well, we are now in the last part of August. We've gone through one of the worst droughts for all of us in our history. We know the Pro-Farmer Tour this week is confirming that the crop yield is probably declined a little more. So I would say between now and the September supply-demand report, second week of September, the market is going to have most of the supply bullishness factored into the market. We will know the crop yield is low. What we don't know is how high does the market have to go before USDA's estimates on demand are actually created a reduced demand. Because I would advocate right now, while USDA is suggesting livestock utilization is going to reduce, domestic feed is going to reduce, and exports going to reduce, we're not seeing it in a practical way yet. So we're starting to see some signs, but the concern I think the trade is getting is that demand is going to have to be more acutely rationed in the third and fourth quarter than we're currently seeing. So how high does the market have to move before you start motivating or nudging that demand liquidation? And the issue is also, how are we going to see it? And you look at history, the market has a very violent high, then turns around and drops. I would say the high, how we're going to see is something like 1996. We are moving into an event that we have historically probably only seen only about one time in the last 42 years. It's going to be a distribution top, more higher prices than we mentally thinking is going to have to ration usage. But once it's done, we're going to destroy demand and potentially force a political event. If we have any weather problem next year, it could be quite severe. But the long-term consequences is demand will be destroyed, supply will be created, and you will lead to a long-term bear market or prices going down to below the cost of production. So the challenge to producers is not really the crop they have pricing.
And when do you think that could happen, Bob?
It's really a long-term issue. It's probably 2, if not 3 marketing cycles out. So we're talking 014, 015 is where that risk would lie. Is that, so historically you got at least 2 marketing cycles you got to go through. So we got plenty of time before we have to worry about that. But the challenge is how do producers get themselves in position to have, because the back end is discounted to the front end, how do they get themselves in position to take advantage of these high prices to try to get $7 plus corn into 014, 015, and $13 to $14 beans into 014, $8.50 wheat to $9 wheat into 014, 015. That's the real challenge that faces us, because our input costs are going to be going up, demand will be rationed, and supply will be increased. Unfortunately, setting up a situation where a producer will be upside down. We have time, there's nothing emergency, but one has to start now planning for this, because eventually basis will widen, carry will come back in the market, and that is the definition of a bear market.
So if you were a farmer, what would you be doing right now as we get into September?
The focus right now is for farmers is on their old crop corn they have. If they haven't had it sowed, they're in the driver's seat. You really don't have, you maybe have to defend if your area of deficiency and you have crop insurance. You wouldn't want the market to close below $8 in corn. Probably wouldn't want the corn to go below, beans below $16. It does, you want a price. Right now, I think you need, between now and December, be focusing on pricing the flat price out. I'd say above $9 in corn, above $18.5 or $19 in beans, flat it out and wait for the basis to narrow sometime next spring. I want to be long the basis until next spring. The real challenge I think you really need to start thinking about is pricing of the 013 or 14 crop between now and next summer. How do you want to proceed in it? I would say, because of the challenges we're facing, I'm very unexcited about selling it basis of cash, because as we learned this year, the guys that sold cash lost over $3 a bushel. And if you didn't have the cash like guys in Ohio and Illinois that sold cash and don't have the corn, they got to roll into 013 to meet the contract. There's some guys that have over $4 loss, and they got corn sold below $4 out there. So selling cash with this uncertainty is, for 013 is difficult. Selling futures, I think, is extremely difficult because of the cash flow exposure. So I think there's only one tool that really gives the ability, which is the use of options. And which technique, and there's, based on the client, but I would be wanting to buy in the money puts in the defers, so I can pre-buy my margin call and know exactly where I'm at. But it has close to value as a futures instrument. It's not a cheap process, it's very expensive, but you are locking in 7 to 7.25 September 2013 corn with a $5 cost of production, you're over 35% return on investment for most operations. That is a very powerful. But if you're in the put, the market rallies, you have the ability to benefit if we rally. But
so it's worth the effort.
It's worth the effort. Your work, but it's going to take commitment on the producer standpoint. It's going to take commitment on the banker side, and you got to have. It just doesn't happen. I think you need to start working on that plan today of how you're going to prepare yourself to handle the emotions of what I think could be an historic event between January and July in reference to volatility, anxiety, and that is usually when the greatest opportunities exist, is when everybody else is very anxious. If everybody else is doing nothing, that's when you as a farmer need to be acting. And farmers, I think, are becoming paralyzed and not thinking about 013 and 14 marketing because of the bullishness of the 012 crop.
All right. Well, Bob, thank you. That's some very practical information farmers can put to use. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.